The Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner, and we have a guest with us today.
Yes, I'm Mike Maloney.
And this is the EV portion of our show, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the image behind us, by the way, we always pick an AI image. And this time I went out on a limb. I said, okay, give us a new studio in the Maldives. It's a beautiful area. Have you been, by the way, to Maldives?
No, I haven't.
It's on my bucket list.
Okay.
You know, that green water, the warm tropical climate. But anyway, what it rendered was this, which is more of a resort. We've got another one that is more like a new studio, and we'll probably use that next week then. But enjoy it. Colors, feel the warmth, feel the beautiful temperature there, and the sunshine.
By all means. Maybe we should start off with doing a couple of the questions that were from Mike that we had on yesterday's Roadster podcast.
Good idea.
Mike joined us yesterday and had a wonderful conversation. So let me read this first question. It says, does Mike recommend buying stocks in gold when there is a major issue like 9/11 or COVID? Stocks normally drop like a rock when a major crisis happens. I'm only asking because there is talk of another temporary COVID close down this coming year. It's because it's an election year. They want everyone to vote from home so they can control the election. It kind of sounds like a little political there. But,
Yeah.
And then thanks for any info.
So I do like to stay away from the politics, but I pretty much agree with just privately, I will say that I pretty much agree with this. But buying stocks, no. Do you want to buy gold? Not when the crisis happens, before the crisis happens. Now, there will be you want some cash set aside so that you can buy Tesla stock on the dip. There's something in technical analysis where if you look at a chart, when the stock closes on one day and then opens the next day, if it opens way up and there's a gap in the chart, or on the way down, gaps have a 92% probability of being filled. In other words, the price will come back down and visit that gap. And there are some huge gaps on Tesla that are pretty far down there. And when I first started buying, I really should have bought when I bought my first cars.
Sure.
$100,000 would be $22.5 million today.
Oh my God!
And exactly. So, but it doesn't always work out. And it's more reliable with indices versus individual stocks, this 92% probability. But there are some big gaps. And when I made my first purchase, it was after the Tesla had peaked, and it came back down and made its first dip. And there had been a gap on the way up.
Okay.
And I just set a buy in that gap. It filled. And I did that on the next three. And you do it for an amount of currency, not an amount of shares. And so the further it goes down, the more shares you're getting. And so even though I started my purchases way above the price that it's at right now, I'm way in profit because I kept on dollar cost averaging going down in the bottom of all those dips, because those dips came down and filled the gaps that are in the chart. Now, with a market crash, which I am expecting, I'm expecting that there will be some horrific. The financial crisis of 2008 is not over with. They papered over it. They put a bunch of Band-Aids on it. This is part of the same crisis. Whatever happens in the future is all part of Ben Bernanke's response to, he changed the economics of the United States and pretty much the world with the things that he had outlined in his speech from 2002 called Deflation, making sure it doesn't happen here. It had been happening in Japan.
Right.
And that was his speech, was how do we prevent deflation? Because they're scared to death of deflation. We have a debt-based monetary system. All dollars come into existence that are owed back. They come into existence by borrowing them into existence, and they're owed back plus interest. The currency to pay the interest has never been borrowed into existence yet. And so we have to always go deeper in debt and inflate the currency supply to keep this Ponzi scheme going. And And so if it goes into deflation, the currency supply can start eating itself and go into a complete collapse if it's bad enough. So he outlined all the things that the Fed could do once they reach the zero bound. The zero bound is when they take the interest rates down to zero, and they can't really go much lower because people will just take cash out of the bank and put it in a safe at home instead of instead of being charged to have deposits at the bank.
Why would you ever pay your bank to hold your money?
Exactly, but people do. Negative interest rates have been a real thing in Europe, and I mean it's absolutely insane. And what's interesting is, before 2008, if you had been an economics student and you raised your hand and said, "Professor, I want to talk about negative interest rates," he would have said, "Sit down and shut up, kid. There's no such thing. Nobody's stupid enough to pay to take the risk to loan somebody else your currency, and you may not get paid back."
Right.
And so anyway, there may be a dip with precious metals also. And you want to have some cash set aside to pick up things like Tesla stock and precious metals. As far as stocks go, I have a bunch of private placements with silver explorers and gold explorers and a couple of mining companies. But I'm not a big stock investor. When you look at, in my book, I explain all of this, the great gold and silver rush of the 21st century. In the bull market of the 1970s, to date, that was the biggest bull market in history, the precious metals bull of the 1970s. Gold went up 25 times its initial price. Silver went up 41 times its initial price. And they far outperformed the stocks.
Sure.
You can, there's something called the Barron's Gold Mining Index that goes way back into the Great Depression and stuff. You take the Barron's Gold Mining Index divided by the price of gold, and you can see whether stocks are outperforming, the mining stocks are outperforming gold or not. And then regular stocks, like all the tech stocks, are way overvalued. And, in my book, I show the Buffett indicator is a measurement of the value of the stock market. So it's all of the listed companies and their price per share times the number of shares in the stock float, and you get the value of the whole stock market.
Okay.
And then Warren Buffett said that his best indicator was taking that compared to the GDP. So you divide it by the GDP of the country. And the stock market has no business having a larger value than the whole GDP, the economic output of the United States of America, because, most businesses are like little dry cleaners and boutiques and restaurants and things like that, not just the publicly listed companies. And the publicly listed companies are way above the economic output of the 1 year's worth of all the goods and services we produce. And so I did one of my researchers, when I was writing the book, spent a long time trying to find proof that, because the Buffett indicator goes back into the 70s for one version of it, and into 1947 for another version. And they're very close, these two different versions, where if you put them on the same graph. So regardless of what method they're using to calculate it, it's pretty close. But they stopped there, and I wanted some historic data. And then I found, my researcher found these two economists in Europe that had taken 17 advanced countries in the world, and through extensive research, this requires newspaper articles, I believe they took it back to 1790. So
wow.
It went way, or maybe it was 1870. I can't remember. It's in the book.
Sure. Okay.
100 years plus, yeah.
But the thing that it proved is that this has been the bubble century. For some reason, everybody went insane in the year after the NASDAQ boom, the tech boom of the late 90s. The valuations have been very lopsided to where the S&P 500, I believe right now, is like, I think it's 18 or 25 times the multiple of the earnings per share.
Sure.
Is people are paying crazy valuations on all of these companies. And you look throughout history, and when the public goes insane, eventually they get punished. So,
one thing I want to insert at this point is, for those of you that are just joining us, is we kind of missed the introduction. Mike Maloney is an accomplished author. He is a financial expert. He has a large YouTube channel that deals with these types of investments, and sometimes alternate investments like gold and silver, not the mainstream.
Yeah.
And he's also a passionate Tesla owner, and also a Roadster owner. How many do you have?
I have 6 right
6,
now,
okay.
but my first one was totaled. So I've had 7 Roadsters.
Mm-hmm.
I had the 599th Model S Signature Edition, so the 599th car off the line other than the Founders cars.
And we also have a picture of a video that was sent to me by Mike this morning. He has property in Puerto Rico. 900 acres.
900 acres that we're doing an experiment to try to make permaculture, atmospheric carbon negative farming. Actually, a little bit less. We're trying to develop techniques to bring the cost down so that it's competitive or more profitable than chemical monoculture. And that's the only thing that mankind does globally on a massive scale that can be turned from carbon positive. The EPA says it's 9% of all greenhouse gas emissions comes from modern farming. Mm-hmm. But when you include all of the other things like the manufacture of the herbicides, pesticides, and chemical fertilizers and other factors, it could be as high as 18%. And that, if it's done naturally, and you're building topsoil, it can be turned carbon negative, so it can sequester atmospheric carbon.
So if you're sensing there is a passion for planet-saving initiatives, that's also part of Mike Maloney. And we have a picture, actually, guys, if you can throw that up. I did a screenshot this morning. It's called Tesla in Puerto Rico. And what Mike is doing here is he's got a Model 3. There's some dirt roads involved, and maybe you can give us a brief description, since this is a EV show.
I call this my mountain. In the middle of, on the property, I've got 3 rivers, 4 large ponds, and an 800-foot tall mountain in the middle, where I can see both the north and the south of Puerto Rico at the same time, the north coast and south coast. And so here we're looking toward the south, and that's my Model 3 dual motor performance, and it has Toyo R1R tires on it, which is basically an autocross tire. It's, they're barely street legal. And so they're like slicks with grooves cut in them. And I'm able to drive to the top of my mountain simply because Teslas have the smartest traction control in the world.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So we've got a few more questions to get through here. And we promised everyone yesterday that we would have some spillover questions. So YouTube, George is asking, he's giving us a smiley face. Okay. And then Highlander from YouTube says, "Hi, gang. It's lunchtime, so I'm here. Kindness is still free."
Yes, kindness is always free.
Mm-hmm.
On YouTube, George did have one other question yesterday. He was, we were talking about the laser jammer that you had in your Tesla Roadster.
Yeah.
And he was asking if you went with the ALP jammer.
I'm not sure what system I have. The readout for it is embedded in the rear view mirror. And then there's, we'll have to put up a picture sometime or another of the sensors that are in the grill. But they're little black sensors that are like half an inch tall and maybe an inch and a half wide. Mm-hmm. And so they barely even show. I haven't even used it yet. I mean, I moved to Puerto Rico in 2016, and then the last time I had driven my Roadster was 2017. And from 2017 until I got here, on this trip, I had only driven it like half a mile, less than half a mile, quarter mile maybe. And so I'm just driving it for the first time. I don't even know how to switch the radar detector on at this point. I have to read the instructions. I put a new stereo in it too, and the head units, I miss the days when there was an on-off switch and a volume control like this.
Yeah.
I mean, paging through stuff, trying to find out how to operate these things.
And swiping. Did you see those young guys back there? They're all shaking their heads going, come on, really? So Instagram, Assis Carries 61 says, greetings from the Benz family. We hope you are successful, striving for a pollution-free future and finally a better income. Well,
Excellent.
welcome. Thanks for joining us. Spicy Red In from Instagram. He says, how to buy Tesla stock from the Maldives.
And that has to deal, I think, with our background picture as well.
I would think that, if you've got a brokerage account, you should be able to buy TSLA. Anybody that has a brokerage account from anywhere in the world should be able to buy Tesla stock.
You can even go on to some of these newer ones like Robinhood and Robinhood's not the only one, but there are a number of basically brokerage accounts that are no fee accounts. Yeah. Anybody can set them up on their phone and $10 to get started, and you're on your way.
And here's the thing about Tesla stock. All of the analysts think it's a car company, and they're analyzing it as a car company and trying to make a direct comparison to Ford or General Motors. They're ignoring the fact that Tesla is going to be the world's largest robotics company. They're probably going to be one of the world's largest energy suppliers, solar panel manufacturers, automotive insurance companies. What are the other things that Tesla does?
And then AI.
Well, Starlink is part of SpaceX, though.
But you've got lithium refinery. They're going to be one of the largest lithium refiners in the United States, if not the largest one within another year or so.
Pete just mentioned AI with the full self-driving very shortly. It's going to be safer to ride in a Tesla that's got full self-driving, and because Tesla has their own insurance, I believe it's 9 states that they're approved for, when you're on full self-driving, your insurance is going to go way down. When you take over yourself, your insurance is going to go way up. And after a while, all of the other automotive companies, when it first comes out, it's going to be like twice as safe as a human driver. And then in a year, it'll be 10 times as safe. And in 5 years, it'll be 100 times safer than a human driver. Mm-hmm. And at that point, who is going to want to ride in a Ford or a Mercedes or a Volkswagen or a Toyota or any other car that's 100 times more likely to kill you, maim you, or injure somebody else?
Sure.
And of course,
and at that point, they will all have to license Tesla full self-driving. Yeah. And so Tesla will be making an income off of every car sold on the planet.
Well, and there you go. That's another one of the things that people don't think about very much. Tesla has the charging infrastructure. Right?
Yes.
Every EV that gets sold is going to benefit Tesla.
Yeah, so especially now that like Ford and General Motors and I think Rivian and who else, they've committed to the Tesla connector now so that they can use so they're all going to be switching over from that funky, what is it, J1770?
J1772 and the CCS standard.
Yeah, these idiotic, huge, clunky things to the the streamlined, simple Tesla connector that where, the charge stations, if you're not a Tesla owner, you got to go up and put in your credit card and stuff and buy the power. And with the Tesla, you just plug it in. Your car is talking to Tesla, and it just bills you at the end of the month.
That's right.
It's so simple and clean. But if you look at the map of the supercharger network and destination chargers around the world, I mean, they've got North America. You can drive from Mexico City to Vancouver, Canada, or to Toronto in a Tesla with no problem. You can drive from the Arctic Circle in Norway down to Morocco. You take a ferry across from Gibraltar. So North Africa to the Arctic Circle. China is fairly well covered already, and not in the outskirts, but whenever you get near any major city or the coast, China is just littered with superchargers. South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. I mean, it's when you look at it, you go, oh my God! In 10 years, Exxon, Mobil, Shell, all of these stations are going to be charge stations instead of gasoline stations, and Tesla is already, more than a decade ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
And when people talk about other charging networks, stations, if you look at a global map, there isn't anybody that's even 10% or 5% on the way to where Tesla already is. And there's no way that anybody can catch up. So it's also going to be replacing all of the gas stations, and anybody that's I think that all of the other car companies are going to be paying a little bit higher rate for their power than a Tesla owner.
Very possible.
Yeah.
For the last few weeks, I've been watching the QT station that I drive past every morning because gasoline was right at $4.99, and I thought, when's it going to cross over $5? Because it's just bouncing off of there. This morning, for the first time, premium is now $5.25
Wow.
in Phoenix at that QT station.
Wow.
So the prices are starting to go back up. We've got a few more questions here. We've got Instagram. Andy Day 923. Thank you for joining us. What's with the sunglasses? I'm going to let Richard answer that.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Andy. The sunglasses, we have multiple reasons why we have sunglasses, right? But we don't have an answer for you just yet. But what I do have an answer for is, where are we going to store these sunglasses? We're going to put them in these Gruber Motor Company sunglass holders.
Hold it a little
Now,
to your...
Do they hold 3 pairs?
They don't, but you can buy 3 sets for each pair
just
of
gotta get a couple of
glasses
them. Yeah.
that you have.
Yeah,
They fit
okay.
perfectly in there. They're available for $79.99 on our website. But if you use code Richard, you get 10% off.
Same discount?
Yeah,
Same discount. Okay,
Same
excellent.
discount.
All right. Instagram, Daddy-O Week says, who is the guest? Let's update again. We have Mike Maloney with us today. He is an accomplished author, investment advisor. He is a passionate Tesla owner and very much into planet-saving initiatives.
I'm my YouTube channel. I've got a YouTube channel with 112 million views and about 750,000 subscribers. And it's mostly about economics and monetary history and precious metals. And then every time I mention Tesla on it, though, I get all this hate mail or Elon Musk, and because it's so polarizing for most people. And I can go down the list of all the things they say, and I can just say wrong, 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 wrong.
And that is at Gold Silver on YouTube if you want to find it.
There it is.
There it is,
Thank
right.
you.
And it's all free. And my video series that you can see at the bottom there, Hidden Secrets of Money, we shot that in 18 countries, and we follow the history of money. The first episode, I'm standing in front of the pyramids, and then the second episode, I'm up on the Acropolis. But what I do is I make analogies of, the first hyperinflation actually happened in Athens. During the Peloponnesian Wars, they debased their currency supply by taking in taxes of gold and silver coins and then melting them and diluting them with 50% copper or something like that, and then they can mint twice as many coins. And that's deficit spending to fund war, and it's just deficit spending for the government. And what that does, it steals. There's no more goods and services being created, just more currency units to be able to purchase the goods and services.
Sure.
Right.
And when that happens, you have inflation, and it's basically the government stealing wealth from its own population and transferring it so that they can outspend their opponent on war and win the war. But they lost the war, and the classical period of Athens history faded. They became nothing but a satellite of Rome later on. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
History replaying itself.
Yes.
We have another question here. YouTube, Highlander, he says, that's where all the YouTubers come from. They bought Tesla stock.
And then on Instagram, Olamide J for Love says, "Your fan from Nigeria."
Thank you for joining
Thanks
us
for joining.
long ways away. Highlander, your guest speaker is quick. Did he read the 1980s book, The 9 Nations of North America?
No, I did not. Sounds like something I need to put on my list.
Mm-hmm. Instagram, thanks for the intro. You're welcome. YouTube, Highlander, pesticides are evil. My garden is organic.
Yeah. You know, I was saying when we went to dinner last night, when you use herbicides and pesticides, you've got sick soil that grows sick plants that creates sick humans. And there are methods of permaculture is a way of not disturbing the soil by you've got to mix all of your plants. So you can't do 100 acres of just one
Wheat, oats.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
You've got to plant your excuse me, tomatoes right next to onions, which will repel some, and then you can do lettuce, and then garlic, and then cucumbers, and then rosemary. You've got to confuse the insects. You don't want to get rid of the insects. You just want a proper balance. You don't want a monocrop that where a certain couple of insects thrive on that crop and they reproduce, and then you've got to use chemicals to control them because they get out of control very rapidly. So all of the pests, you want the pests. You just don't want them in overwhelming numbers.
And strength, yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Mike has 900 acres in Puerto Rico, and his current project is to do responsible agriculture. It was a coffee plantation at one point in time.
Yeah, with these horrendous practices in Puerto Rico, the way they do the coffee plantations, they bulldoze all of the topsoil off of a hillside. And so it's down to clay. And then they plant vertical rows that encourage erosion. And then they spray constantly with herbicides, pesticides, and chemical fertilizers. And so, my farm is up near the peak of Puerto Rico. And my main river comes from Toro Negro State Park, where there are no trails. So there's no humans, no domesticated animals, no farming. And it comes out of there. It's some of the purest water and air up there available at these latitudes, because the air, any pollutants that leave North Africa travel 6,000 miles to get to us over the Atlantic. So it's all precipitated out by that time. And then comes in on the south coast where there's very little population. And as it goes up toward Cerro de Punta, it condenses and falls as this pure rain. And then right after this river leaves our property, it encounters all these pesticides and herbicides. So it gets the river, from then on, you can't have pure water and air. Right after, my farm is the only one.
Oh, my goodness.
And luckily, it's 8 to 12 degrees cooler than most of the other farms in Puerto Rico, so I can grow different crops or shift my harvest season so that I'm not competing against everybody else. And Puerto Rico imports 85% of all the food they consume, and it goes through something called the Jones Act, which is a very discriminatory ancient law that was created during the World War I, where there's only a couple of companies that are allowed to import, and the shipping into and out of Puerto Rico has to go through these two companies that don't really compete, and that causes everything all the groceries at the grocery store are like 20 to 30% higher than they are on the mainland.
Because of these two companies.
Because of this law, yeah.
Because of a monopoly.
And what that does is it creates opportunity for me, because I can grow, we're experimenting, we're growing broccoli and asparagus. And, in Puerto Rico, what they grow is plantains, root vegetables like juca, and coffee. And that's what we're not going to grow. Mm-hmm. And that will allow us a little extra profits that we can afford to do permaculture farming and try to figure out techniques to bring the cost down on permaculture.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, we've got a picture, Jesse. Can you bring up the Fritschel electric automobile? And I'd love to have Mike tell us a little bit about this project. Should be up here in just a second. In the meantime, we've got Aziz Carriage 61 saying Tesla is the bright future of the Earth.
It is.
Yes, it is.
And there we go. We've got that image.
Okay, so I ran across this several years ago, but back in 1904, this guy is it Oliver Fritchell? I can't remember his first name. I think it's Oliver.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he came out with a car that had a range of greater than 100 miles back in 1904.
Right.
This is absolutely amazing. And he drove it in 1908. He drove one of his cars 1,800 miles from Lincoln, Nebraska to New York City. And then I believe after that went on to Washington, D.C. These were made in Denver, Colorado. And in this article, there are the addresses of his plants. And I was in Denver last week, and I didn't, sorry, I didn't get the opportunity to do this, but I was going to go and have my picture taken in front of each one of the locations where these were made, because what a feat. When most electric cars had a range of 30 miles, here's one that goes over 100 miles.
You just have to wonder, what kind of DC storage method was he using? Was it just full of batteries everywhere? That's the only conclusion I can come to, because it was all lead acid back then.
Right, but it was also very lightweight because there was a lot of ash and other woods used to make it, not as much iron. And so the combination of a lot of batteries and the lightest weight body and frame that you can make.
Sure. Got another image here, Jesse, if you could pop that up. This one's making the news today. UAW. And then later we'll bring up UAW-GMC. And I think Mark did some research on this.
I did. This is one of those current events that coming in, I was talking to Pete about and said, we need to probably bring this one up and talk about it fairly quickly. The short summary is UAW is about to go on strike. When they go on strike, if they go on strike, but it looks like it's going to happen, it will be for the first time in history against the three large domestic automakers, Ford, General Motors, and now Stellantis, historically known as Chrysler Dodge.
And Fiat and
a whole bunch of others.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of others.
Dodge, Maserati.
And Mark, what does that stand for again?
United Auto
Everybody-
Workers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so here's a quick summary that I took some time to look up of what the union wants, how it could impact these automakers, and what it means for us for electric vehicle makers. What does the union want? They want a few items. Here are just a few of what they want. They want a 36% raise. They want and it's over 4 years. But when you compound it, it ends up being about 40%. They want a 32-hour work week with 40 hours worth of pay. So that,
I was going to get right out of Mike.
Yes. Do we hire babysitters for them as well?
I'm wondering. They want a restoration of full pensions to all of their new workers. So right now they have 401k programs like most of the rest of America, which are a defined contribution benefit plan. And they want to go back to the defined benefit pension plan because they know that ends up getting a lot more money into the pockets of the workers. And then for all of the retirees, they want significant pension increases, among other things. If the unions were to get their way, here's a quick rundown of what the labor costs would look like. Right now, automakers have a couple, at least two and sometimes more tiers of workers. Older, experienced workers are on a higher wage tier. Newer, inexperienced workers are on a lower wage tier. Those higher workers might earn, say, $60,000. If you had a team of 8 people in assembly earning $60,000 per year each. And in the lower tier, maybe you have another team of 8 people, and they're earning about $38,000 a year each. If they contribute to their 401k, they can get up to like a 4% match from the company. The company matches 100% of the first, typically 4%. Overall, those 16 people today earn $815,000 in an annual wage plus these benefits. If the union gets their way, it's going to take 20 people instead of 16 people to get the same amount of work done because they're only working 32 hours a week. Mm-hmm. Those 20 people will all earn an average of about $81,600 per year per person. And a pension is more like a 10% or so company-funded plan. And so that $815,000 will go up 120% to about $1.8 million worth of wages for the same now 20 people, because you can't do the same work with 16.
Well, personally, I would like to thank them for accelerating the advent of electric cars.
Bingo. Yeah.
This
Exactly.
is a nail in the coffin for all of the legacy automotive manufacturers. And, even without this happening, if this doesn't happen, General Motors is still going to go bankrupt. But what will happen is they will get a bailout. So this is what I'm afraid of, is that government motors is going to become even more of the government. It's going to be owned by the government. It'll get bailed out, and then it'll go bankrupt anyway. And be gone eventually after the U.S. taxpayer has spent a whole lot on bailing out General Motors, and maybe like twice, who knows. But Ford has a chance of surviving because of their strategy of splitting the EV division off from the internal combustion division, and they can let the internal combustion division go along with all of these UAW workers that are accelerating the demise of it. Already every electric car that they make, they lose on, and when they sell an electric car, they cannibalize a sale of a profitable internal combustion vehicle. And these people are just making the losses greater. And they don't realize that what they're doing is they're cutting their own throats. They're not going to have a job because there won't be a job unless they go and knock on Tesla's door.
Yeah. This is great news for Tesla and for Rivian and for Lucid and for Fisker and these other EV makers that are because the price pressure is downward on the EVs right now, with lithium prices going down and non-union workers and stuff like that.
I think Fisker is also going to be headed for another bankruptcy, and I think that Lucid should be picked up by like General Motors or somebody that's desperate to convert. Thank you, Mary, you led, and it matters. They've got great technology at Lucid.
Yes.
And that should be acquired by somebody that can make it successful. But all these legacy automotive companies carry a lot of debt. When you look at their balance sheets compared to Tesla, in 10 years, there's going to be BYD, NIO, Xpeng, and Tesla will be the car companies that are available in the United States. Rivian might survive. I don't think Lucid will. I don't think that Fisker is just, it's almost like a recurring nightmare that's also a comedy. When I placed my down payment on my Model S Signature, I had to wait 14 months for the Model S to be delivered. And in the meantime, Fisker started delivering cars, and my birthday was coming up, and I put a down payment on a Fisker also. And I was going to cancel whichever one I didn't like that much. And so, I had driven the Fisker just around the dealership. But then I said, after putting the down payment on it, I asked them if I could drive it for a little bit more extended drive, because I live up in the Malibu Mountains, and I just wanted to see how it was up in the mountains. It was, you take a couple of 2x12s, put some wheels on the end, and then load all of this different junk that doesn't work very well together. And it went 17 miles before the generator came on. And you step on the throttle, the gas pedal in this case, in a Tesla it's a potentiometer, and it goes. It just stays at like 5,300 RPM or something, or whatever the highest efficiency range is for that engine. And the car was just scary to drive up in those canyon roads because it is so wide. And then the fenders peak like probably 8 inches in from the edge of the fender. So you can't tell where the edge of the car is.
Oh, boy.
And another car would be coming down this narrow canyon road, and you're just, it was just the dumbest vehicle I had ever driven. It was, and I felt sorry for anybody that actually bought one.
Yeah.
So I canceled that one and waited for my Model S.
Wow, that great Fisker story there.
A few more questions coming in here. YouTube Highlander, he says, when my submarine went to Puerto Rico, we had a great time. Rosie Navy Base.
I didn't know about. I thought the military bases in Puerto Rico were closed, but I guess there's still one open. So that means that we're still a nuclear warhead target. I was hoping there wasn't one left, but even if there wasn't, I would imagine that the targets don't get retargeted very often on the outdated Russian military program.
Well, we'll need to ask Highlander too. How long ago was that? So maybe he'll tell us later.
Well, officially, Mike, there is no military base on Puerto Rico.
Officially, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Instagram, Daddy O Weeks. He says no photo for X.
X what?
I'm not sure that.
I'm not
sure
sure
on that
either.
one.
Okay.
And then YouTube, PYGKLB says the worst thing about CCS charge stations is that you can't tell if a station is up or down without parking and getting out of the car. I had to shift to a working charger on my trip in a Polestar.
That is true. I have a Volvo XC40 and it has the CCS adapter. I've been to the Electrify America chargers only to get there. Look it up online. Google is supposed to be really good about this. Electrify America just tells you how many chargers are there. It doesn't tell you anything about how many are available.
Yeah.
Some of the other networks are starting to get better, but I have to agree.
There's the amount of uptime for the charge. Nobody beats Tesla. The downtime for these chargers where they're broken or damaged somehow is many, many, many times the downtime for Tesla supercharger network.
We recently mentioned something. Tesla superchargers were 99.95% reliable.
Yes.
I mean, that's the kind of reliability that your payroll company gives you typically.
Yeah.
And most of these other chargers are in like the 70 to 85% availability range.
Exactly. Right. And so that is many, many, many times.
It looks like Niles is joining us from Denmark. Welcome. He says self-driving will eventually become part of all cars, but freely available and not a revenue source. I also doubt that the idea of using private cars as taxis will become popular, but a one-man dream.
Okay, well, go back to the question for a minute. I'd like to know how it's going to be freely available to everybody and not a revenue source. There's nobody else on the planet, no other car company, there's no company, period, that can catch up with Tesla. It's just not possible. For a company like Ford, for instance, to try to catch up with Tesla's full self-driving, the V12 that Elon Musk just demonstrated about 3 weeks ago, they deleted all of the instructions, the heuristics, 300,000 lines of code. And now you've got artificial intelligence that views millions upon millions of miles of human drivers doing it really well and learns from watching TV, basically, and then duplicates it. So for a company like Ford to catch up, Tesla has been accumulating these billions of miles of data that they've got in their cars since 2012. Their cars have had 8 eyes that don't blink, and they accumulate this data. They've also designed the most powerful computers on Earth, the Dojo computer system, to analyze and teach the AI the right way to do this. So a company like Ford, in order to catch up with the 4 million cars that Tesla has on the road and the 2012, it's 11 years of data collection. They'd have to drop like 10 million cars on the road today in one fell swoop, and then also engineer the world's most advanced computer chips and create a computer more powerful than Dojo just to catch up. It's not possible. Tesla is accelerating away from these companies faster than they're trying. They're accelerating, trying to catch up, but Tesla is accelerating away from them so quickly. Every car company on the planet is going to have to license this from Tesla. And so the full self-driving won't be something that's freely available to everyone. It will be something that Tesla is licensing to all of the other car companies. And maybe it's $100 a month, maybe it's $200 a month, maybe it's only 50, but that car company is going to get to keep half and Tesla gets the other half. And so Tesla will have a revenue stream from every other car manufacturer on the planet.
Do you-
And there's no possibility that this won't happen because it's very quickly going to be twice as likely to be maimed or killed in another vehicle. And then a year later, you'll be 10 times more likely to die in a Mercedes or a BMW than a Tesla. And then it'll be 50 times, after 10 years. The car doesn't make the mistakes of lapse in attention. That's the number one cause of accidents. Or miscalculating speed. Oh, I can beat that train.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that cause probably more than 98% of all the accidents are caused by those two things. It's very rare that there's actually an equipment failure or something like that. And so anybody, very quickly, you're going to see insurance. If you're on full self-driving, your insurance is probably going to go down by half and eventually like a tenth. And if you take over manual driving, it's going to go back up.
Yeah.
And so that punishes anybody and that's going to accelerate the sales of Tesla. And then it's going to accelerate all of the other car companies having to license the Tesla software. It has to happen. It's not like there's no if, ands, or buts here. It's going to happen. And I don't think Tesla is going to be making this available to all of its competitors freely. That's not going to happen.
Do you think that at the consumer level, however, that the consumers are going to eventually get to the point where full self-driving is simply part of the car, and it's not so much that they are paying for full self-driving as it is that they are penalized if they don't have full self-driving?
It may be part of the car. It may not. Maybe it's not going to be a subscription. But can't you buy full self-driving in a Tesla right now, either $15,000 up front or a monthly subscription or not?
Yes.
I can't remember.
Yeah, you can. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why
Same
won't
with
it be
their
the same
autopilot.
with all of the other cars that are on the road? In a Mercedes, you spend $15,000. Tesla gets 7,500 of that. Mercedes gets 7,500 or something like that is probably what's going to happen. Or you sign up for the subscription and the car's price is lower, allowing them to sell more cars. So and then he goes on to say that he doubts that the idea of using private cars as taxis will become popular. Well, I'm here. I've been riding in a lot of Ubers, and I start talking about this and let them know where the technology is. They probably have at most 3 years left for their job to exist. And so all of the Uber drivers have to start making plans today. What am I going to do when this job doesn't exist? Mm-hmm. Now, I can't, back in the 30s, the refrigerator was introduced.
Sure.
Every town had an iceman. There was a guy with a horse and cart, and he delivered ice every week or every few days. I don't know how long the blocks of ice would last, but I'm sure when he first saw the refrigerators, oh, this is just a fad. My job is secure.
Yeah.
And there's something called S-curve adoption. There's, the current technology that is going along, and it's 100% of sales. A new technology is introduced, and there's the early adopters, like the people that bought the original Roadsters. And then it gets just a little bit more popular and a little bit more popular, but still 99.9% of sales are that old technology. And then suddenly everybody starts to discover how much better this new technology is. And there's this sudden S-curve adoption where the new technology replaces the old technology. That happened with the refrigerator. It happened with color TV replacing black and white. It happened with cell phones replacing landlines. It happened, it happened with email replacing fax machines. It pretty much happens with all of these new technologies. And we're just at the beginning of this curve right now. It's just steepening.
Yeah.
So over the next 5 years, you're going to see this dramatic shift. But when it comes to private cars, anybody like my Model 3, I bought the full self-driving, when I ordered the car. It's a 2018. So anybody, they're not, Tesla is not going to use Model 3s, I don't believe, for their robo-taxi fleet. They're developing a car that has no controls, and it'll be built on the next platform that's coming out from the Mexico Gigafactory.
I agree with you
So
there.
yeah, I think that all of those, they're not going to sell to the public. Those are going to be owned by Tesla, and it'll be a Tesla robotaxi fleet where they keep 100% of the revenues. Tesla they're going to be the largest company on earth, and it's by multiples. Apple is $3 trillion, and I think Microsoft is like Microsoft and Google are just behind Apple, at like 2.8 and something like that. And but you could take Tesla's robotics division, and just that is probably going to be multiples of Apple. And then you take the car division, that as well. And then you take, I mean, there's all these different factors when you're looking at Tesla stock that say that at this point, I think it's at least a 10-bagger in the future. I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait for it to get there. But one day, Wall Street will wake up. And they're going to start analyzing this as the company that it really is, instead of just a car company competing with Mary Barra at General Motors.
You know, a great segue at this point is we shot a video yesterday. That actually Mark had been researching, and it plays into everything you just said. We think that Tesla is seriously undervalued.
Yes.
Because people are not looking at the future. And in fact, if you want to chime in at this point.
I do, actually. I mean, we took kind of a non-traditional look at this and said, okay, let's take a look at a couple different manufacturers and see what kind of money they generate per square foot of manufacturing space. It's something that you don't really see commonly out there. And lo and behold, okay, Tesla generates $1,200 per square foot of manufacturing space. Ford, which was kind of my analog because car company versus car company at this point, and Ford does second best among what I looked at was 618. But that doesn't count Tesla's going into lithium. That doesn't count that Elon Musk has announced they're going to reduce manufacturing costs by 50% within 5 years. It doesn't count any of the new building that Tesla is going to be doing. Tesla has the potential to be generating net profits equal to per square foot the revenue that Ford generates.
Wow. Yeah.
Within 5 years.
Well, you know, when he first went down this road, he said the greatest opportunity lies in improving the machine that builds the machine.
Yeah.
More so than the electric car, changing the machine is the manufacturing techniques. And, you know, they've already done that with the gigacastings and now the Cybertruck, eliminating the paint shop. And I've got 2 Cybertrucks on order for my farm and 2 electric tractors and an electric XUV that are all going to be, I've got 100 solar panels and 9 Tesla Powerwalls. So they're all going to be running on sunlight. But Tesla, the efficiencies that they are squeezing out of everything are just, you just said a 50% reduction. So that means $2,400 per square foot, right? You said $1,200 per square foot.
Even if they keep their revenue at $1,200 per square foot, their profits, which were $130 a square foot, you cut the manufacturing cost in half, and their profits go up to $618 a square foot. And Ford's revenue was $618 a square foot before accounting for any expenses.
Right. Yeah. There's most legacy automotive manufacturers. Anybody that laughed at Tesla is going to be paying for it.
Oh yes.
That video, by the way, will be released, guys. Within the next couple of days or so?
Yeah, I'm working on it currently. I'd say within the next day or 2.
Excellent. Okay.
And then what did you need, Jesse?
Well, I just said, Mike had said he had, I think, Cybertrucks on order, and that brings us into what we have in the thumbnail today, if you want to talk about the Cybertruck.
We do indeed, yes. There are a couple items there, actually. We can go to the Cybertruck windshield. And, there we go. It's interesting. There was a picture of Franz standing in front of a Cybertruck that had just gone through some rain, and apparently that single windshield wiper doesn't quite clean the window to the extent that people would like. So we'll see if there's a design change there.
They could add a second one, and they did have a patent, I believe, for a worm drive wiper that will cover the entire window that was filed quite a few years ago. That is still an early prototype that von Holzhausen was driving there, right? And
Yeah, we believe so. It didn't. The article did not go
now-
into the timelines.
Mercedes, I used to have a Mercedes that had a single wiper, and the wiper would start out short and then get longer and then shorten and get longer and shorten
Right.
again. So you had this weird pattern of a dirty window at the bottom right around the arm of the pivot of the
Right.
windshield wiper, but it pretty much cleaned the whole window. If this is a prototype, there isn't any reason they can't do that.
Yeah,
That
or
they
something similar, yeah.
Right. They can make it clean
Well, and it's
the rest of the window.
federal mandate's only 80%. And in all honesty, if you take a look at the size of that windshield,
Yeah.
you're going to realize that is probably cleaning 80% or more of the windshield.
Another thing is the apex of the Cybertruck is way above your head. So what part of the windshield are you actually looking through?
Yeah.
And
good
I will
point.
bet it's 90% or 95% of the glass area has been cleaned in the plane of your eyes.
Which leads us into actually the next discussion here. The Cybertruck apparently was originally designed to be much more round. And later on, it landed on a cyberpunk stainless steel truck with sharp lines and edges, but it was initially designed with curves and an aluminum exterior. Now, this is all according to a book that was just released by Isaacson, and it's a book about Elon. They go on here. They say it was originally designed to be relatively normal in the grand scheme of things. And what they meant by that, apparently Elon and Franz went to the Peterson Auto Museum, and they looked at some of the pickup trucks there. And they realized at that point that the design of pickup trucks really hasn't changed in 80 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So, of course, Elon, wanting to, break the mold, decided, let's do something different. And here's what the quote from the book is. Beginning in early 2017, this is Elon talking, they began kicking around ideas for we began kicking around ideas for a Tesla pickup truck. Von Holzhausen started with the traditional designs using a Chevrolet Silverado as a model. One was placed in the middle of the studio, and they studied the proportions and components. And then Elon said that he wanted something more exciting, perhaps even surprising. So they looked at historical vehicles with a cool vibe, most notably the El Camino, a retro futuristic coupe made by Chevrolet in the 60s. And then Franz designed the pickup truck with similar vibe, but as they walked around the model, they agreed that it felt too soft. It was too curved. It didn't have the authority of a pickup truck. So then later on, they decided on a design, but according to legend here, apparently Elon told his Tesla design studio, we're not going to do the traditional boring truck. We can always do that later. I want to build something that's cool. Don't resist me.
Well, when they did the unveil, and I was invited to that unveil, and I should have gone because that isn't that the one? No, that was the semi I was invited to where they unveiled the Roadster. And I did put a deposit on the Roadster. I'm glad I finally got it back. But when it was unveiled, that I watched that live, and I went, oh, no, oh, my God, and I hated it. And the next day I started warming to it. And then the next day I ordered one. and I was like, about number 200,000 on the third day. And then about a month or two later, I ordered a second one. And on that one, I was like 500,000 already.
Yeah, my initial impression when I very first saw it was that Elon must have gone to a daycare where the kids were playing with Legos and saw a kid with a square Lego block with the triangle on the top.
I do wish that they, if it had a steeper windshield and a flat roof, instead of the apex like this, it would be much more shaped like an airplane wing. And
Yes.
I'm certain that it would be more aerodynamic, have more area in the cockpit or the interior, and a lower, be able to get into garages that have a garage door opener that hangs down too far and stuff like that.
Right. One of the things that was surprising that I learned, and this comes from one of our listeners, George. He sent me an email, And on that email, there is something called I think it was called Apex. It was a conversion kit for a Ford pickup, and it made the Ford. And this was from 2015 through 2020 that this kit was made.
Oh,
And it made the Ford have like a hard fastback like a Mustang, and the end result looks surprisingly a lot like the Cybertruck.
huh.
Interesting.
I'll have to pull up that email and get some pictures maybe for one of our next podcasts.
And now they've got Cybertruck. I guess they're validation prototypes or something, dressed up like a Ford.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh yes.
So it looks like the Germans don't like the Cybertruck. And
Yeah.
in a magazine, Automobile Woche, or I guess Auto Week, they claim that the structure is too rigid and it won't absorb the enormous forces in the event of an accident. The headline was, Tesla Cybertruck too unsafe to be sold in Europe, German authorities say. So it's going to be tough, it looks like, getting this approved there.
Well, so this is an article in an automobile magazine, right? Quoted by, yeah. And do they actually have crash test results from the Cybertruck? Because originally it was launched as an exoskeleton. But if you look at the construction, it's got the Giga casting under it, and it's got some steel components inside. I doubt very much if Tesla would release a vehicle that won't pass every crash test all around the planet and be one of the safest vehicles that there is. Right. That's just their thing. So far, the safest cars in the world are Model 3, Model Y, Model S, and Model X.
Yeah,
by a long shot.
And Model 3 has the best safety scores ever recorded by the
any car
Insurance
ever.
Institute for Highway Safety ever.
Yeah.
In fact, Actualidad Motor, another European online magazine, said that the safety issues are not so much the truck itself. The two issues that they have, and let me get this here. Stefan Teller from the German government saying the main issue that he sees is because of the stainless steel panels on the truck and the rigidity of the truck. If there's an automobile and pedestrian or automobile and bicycle accident, there is no crumple zone that helps to dissipate the energy from the pedestrian.
True. Have you seen the front end of a Dodge Charger?
Yeah.
It's got, they went back to this recessed grille design and this real sharp hood that sticks out, and it's steel.
Yeah.
and I mean, there's, how long have you been like trying to dispel all of this crap that is said about Tesla year after year after year? I remember, giving people rides in my Roadster before the Model S existed. And everybody, I mean, 100%, I'm telling people, you just know that when, after riding in this, that 10 years from now, 90% of the cars being made are going to be electric. And they would say, oh, yeah, this is a great car, but I couldn't have one because.
Yeah.
They would come up with some reason that was not a reason. When it comes to like range anxiety and everything, I realized when I moved to Puerto Rico, I had to go back to an internal combustion machine for a couple of years. I got a Volkswagen Golf Type R, which is a little pocket rocket. Great little chassis that's real nimble and good handling, very stealthy because it just looks like a Volkswagen Golf, but it's got the all-wheel drive system and the turbocharged engine out of an Audi. And
oh wow!
it's a little race car basically. But I didn't realize what a burden having to stop and fill up with gasoline is when your car is always ready to go every morning and has 300 miles of range. I've only had to use superchargers like maybe it's less than 10 times in my life. And I've been driving, my first Tesla was a 2010. And so, more than a decade, I've only had to use superchargers, less than 10 times or so. When you calculate, 6 to 10 minutes, depending on whether you've got to go in and pay for it or use a credit card right at the pump, 6 to 10 minutes to fill up your car. And it's usually at some inconvenient time where you've got to be somewhere.
Right.
You're just not certain about how far you can go on what's in your tank, and you got to pull over and do that. And you do this a couple times a week, and then you add that up over the years, and you figure out how many months of your life you spent in gas stations. It's insane compared to, I mean, these complaints that you hear from people. You can just slam down these complaints one by one, and it just goes on and on. And this is just more of people trying to come up with a reason it's not going to work. This is going to pass all of the safety tests in Europe, and there won't be any problem. I'm sure that Tesla has, I remember Battery Day. They gave the audience time to list all of their complaints and stuff. And there's this one guy talking about cobalt mining and how dirty it is and everything. And Elon Musk just stands there and listens to. And then they start the introduction to their Battery Day, and one of the very first things they cover is that cobalt is being phased out. There's just this constant thing year after year after year that you have to sort of fight against if you're. Or it's like, there are these knuckle-dragging Luddites that do not want the future to happen. And you just have to root for a bright, good future.
Yeah. Looks like we've got some more questions here. YouTube, Aziz KZ61. I myself want to start electric cars in the name of Tesla. I hope you will help me. Again, email us if you're trying to start a shop. We don't have a lot of help for you because we don't franchise yet. We don't have training programs, but we're working on some videos, have a few out there already. Our YouTube channel is a good resource if you're starting an electric car company or electric car service company, I should say. YouTube Highlander, he says, is Puerto Rico going to be the 51st state?
I certainly hope not, because the reason that I live down there is because it's one of the only things that an American citizen can do to mitigate their tax liability. My business in California, I worked for 40 years as an entrepreneur, and I created businesses, and I tried and failed and tried and failed. I went, under with a couple of businesses. Others I shut down because I could just see they weren't going to be immensely profitable. And then I had one business finally that hit, and as soon as I did, my taxes, federal plus state, it was 52% income tax. Now, your income represents part of your lifetime. And so they were taking 52% of my working lifetime. And if you had spread this out over the 40 years that I invested to learn how to become successful and to have a bunch of employees and create prosperity. Any business owner that's got employees is creating prosperity for the planet. And I just, and then with the regulation, the burdens that the state puts on you, I sold my business and went to, I went to Puerto Rico, and I've got an arrangement with the business, but it's now mostly owned by a company in New York all of the employees in California lost their jobs. And it was all because of government intervention in everything. And they just made my life miserable. And so I'm down there on these tax, I've got a tax grant, and my regular W-2 style income is at 4%, and all investment income, not just capital gains, but all investment income is 0% for 20 years. They just want to attract currency onto the island. And like the W-2 style income, you have to be exporting a product off of the island and bringing currency in. If it becomes a state, all of that goes away. Right now, they've got a special arrangement where they get to do their own tax structure.
YouTube, Ray Johnson, welcome, Ray. He says, I like the way you guys revised how you've broken out timestamps on your videos, more user-friendly, and that's really our social media team that's doing all of that work. They're typing, they're doing it right now, actually.
Thank you, Aaron, especially.
Yep, that's Aaron over there.
YouTube, Soul to Stone says, good afternoon, gentlemen.
I'm sorry, that was actually Instagram.
Instagram, okay. All right, and then Highlander says, Tesla will eat everyone's lunch. Well, they already are.
Yeah, they already are.
Yep.
Niles from the Bion Danish Genome Institute says that Mike's farming sounds good. Are his neighbors or his country learning? Can his work be applied widely elsewhere? And has Mike heard of Silbeck/Vesta probiotics?
I haven't heard of that brand of probiotics, but I do take probiotics and prebiotics, the fiber that all of the bacteria needs to prosper. Sorry. The farming, we're just getting going right now. I do know that this set of circumstances that provide this opportunity to have a self-funding experiment in trying to make permaculture. I've got a house up there that everything on this farm was destroyed in Hurricane Maria. 7 buildings, and I'm rehabilitating these buildings. And one of them is a 10-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 2-kitchen bunkhouse. And I'm hoping that I'll get a bunch of volunteers up there working with me to try and do this. And then in the Netherlands, there is a college that works directly with farmers. But right now, we're just doing test crops, and we've been very successful at growing things like broccoli and asparagus and crops that aren't normally Puerto Rican crops, so that we're competing against all of this food that has to be brought through the Jones Act and is artificially 20 to 30% higher. And that means we can do this more expensive method of agriculture and probably do it profitable. And then I have something, Puerto Rico sort of hands out tax incentives and breaks willy-nilly. Mm-hmm. And they've got something called a bona fide farmer's certificate. It took us 2 years to get it. Most farmers just give up. So there's only probably 10% of the farmers in Puerto Rico that actually have these. But all of our farm income is 90% tax exempt, and we pay no sales tax, which is 11% in Puerto Rico, on all farm supplies and equipment, and no import duties. So equipment, that's about 14%. And so the competitive advantages we have should allow us to do this more expensive form of agriculture that, if we can figure out how to lower the cost, it'll save the planet. I mean, it's really, we're going through something, I mean, everybody should do an internet search on this. The Anthropocene extinction event. This is the 6th mass extinction that planet Earth has been through. And scientists right now, they know that the normal background rate of species going extinct compared to what's happening today, right now it's somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times greater than the normal background extinction rate. They don't know exactly, you can't agree exactly where it lies in that range. But, it's 100 times greater than normal. This is something that everybody should be concerned about. Instead, we're more worried about football scores or, these silly wars that we have this follow the leader mentality, mankind. We got to hire these idiots, and we actually pay them to tell us what to do. And then they've got to keep us all afraid of one another. They create these lines that actually don't exist on the earth, these borders, and make the people on the other side the boogeymen that are going to attack you somehow or kill you. And I mean, there's very few people around the world that I hate. There's a couple of people and they're the prominent leaders that are doing this to all of our populations. But and it's a shame that we keep ourselves busy with all of this stuff when there's much bigger things to worry about.
Yes.
So on the island, Puerto Rico, all right, you mentioned, Hurricane Maria did quite a bit of damage. How do you get internet connectivity on this island?
Well, we're right below Cerro de Punta is the highest point, and on there's a microwave tower for microwave internet, except it's powered by the local power company, which is extremely unreliable. Even in San Juan, there's a power outage at least a couple times a month, but it used to be after the hurricane, for the first year, you'd not have power for 3 days or a week, and then you'd have power for a day.
Right.
And then, luckily, I'm in a building that has its own power station. When I'm up on my mountain, you can see sometimes you'll be up there after sunset, and then suddenly everything goes dark except our ranch because we've got solar panels and Tesla Powerwalls.
So you're off the grid,
but-
basically.
Yes, and then we have the microwave, but the tower goes out when there's a power outage. So we've got two Starlinks for a backup.
Okay.
And so we've always got internet, we've always got power, and we've got our own water source and our own food. So this is the ultimate, like, safe haven protection against government stupidity. Everything, I think, except nuclear war.
Yes, yes.
So SpaceX's Starlink high-speed internet, here's another article, made $1.4 billion in revenue in 2022. And they predict that they will be that this will continue, but it's falling below expectations. Apparently, they had been projecting that by 2015 it will generate $12 billion in revenue per year. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, you're
I don't keep up with all these things. I just think it's pretty amazing that one man owns, I mean, that's still a private company,
Yeah.
SpaceX.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
right.
a publicly listed company. I think there are some other investors or partners, but Elon Musk owns most of it. That means he owns, the one person owns the largest network of satellites in history, and it's by multiples. The number
yeah.
of satellites up there, and it will be the largest internet service provider on the planet.
Well, Mike,
And
it's like you said, with the AI, it's going to be another thing that everybody leases from Elon.
yes,
Another
exactly.
thing, the entire
Right.
world is going to use it. All of the airlines, by the way, are already switching to it. They've figured out the issues with moving targets to where now these things are traveling hundreds of miles an hour in the jet stream, and they have Starlink.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So they're only making 1.4 billion per year. Is that what it says right now?
Yes, 1.4 currently.
Yeah, but that's going to change in the future. This is a profit while they are. What is the rate that they're adding satellites right now? And imagine what happens when the Starship starts deploying. I don't know how many thousand satellites does that hold.
Right. Yeah.
It's going to be immense, and one day, even though they didn't meet the expectations currently, they're far going to exceed those expectations one day.
I think I would agree with that. You know, Niles from the Bio-Danish Genome Institute, he's from the Netherlands as well, by the way. He did have a PS for you, said the Vesta Solbeck, these are probiotics for the soil.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know that. We
Yeah.
will be, and I'm not a farmer. I'm somebody that deals in economics, monetary history, precious metals, and this has just become an interest. I do have my farm manager, Nicholas Spazov, was born in Bulgaria, went to school under communism, so he learned a little bit of Russian. Came to the United States, he's fluent in English and Spanish, and he's been studying permaculture for many, many, many years, and so he's like a permaculture expert. So he would already know about that, I'm sure, but I will bring it up, and we
Very
will be
cool.
using it. One of the things I want to do is have a lab so that we can look at all of the microbes and fungus in the soil and look at the balance and measure the minerals in the dirt below the topsoil and any pollutants, and then be able to know the vitamins and mineral content of all of the vegetables that we grow and fruit. I've got, I think, 917 orange trees right now. I just have this gut feel that I need 2,000 or 3,000 for the economies of scale for all the production equipment to be able to make orange juice and stuff. But organic, carbon negative, sustainable, permaculture orange juice available in the store.
That'd be
That's
pretty cool.
our goal. And the thing is, the brand that we're competing against on the mainland at Whole Foods is $7.50 for a 52-ounce bottle. It's $11 in Puerto Rico. That's the price difference, and
Wow.
that gap is what can help this to. Normally, something like this would have to be done on grants and charity to be able to get this. To, when you're dealing with something that has a higher cost and you're losing on it, growing this food and selling it. But if we grow the right crops, I think that we can do this profitably right off the bat. So
Yeah, last night Jesse and I talk about robots all the time, AI, and One of the things that actually Mike proposed was in this orange grove that he's envisioning now, having an Optimus robot with leg extensions.
Yeah, telescopic legs and maybe 6 arms to be, and then
There you go.
sensors that maybe it takes certain frequencies of light or a laser or whatever, so that it can look at an orange and tell whether that thing is optimum right now to be picked, if it's perfectly ripe and has the right content. Right now, tomatoes are just red bags of water. They're, the tomatoes, like in Puerto Rico, they're going to come from Canada or the U.S. or South America,
Right.
depending on the time of year. They're picked green, and we've bred tomatoes to basically have 5-mile-an-hour bumpers on them. So they can take an
yeah.
impact, so that you can put them in a box, ship them on a truck to a train station, put them in a warehouse, put them in a boat, ship it to Puerto Rico or whatever, and it's green when it gets there, and then they expose them to ethylene gas, and the green tomato turns red, and it looks ripe. But it's devoid of all of the minerals and vitamins that it should have if it was allowed to get vine ripened. And so one of the goals that we're trying to do is improve the mission of the farm is to reverse the environmental impact of modern farming and to create tastier, healthier food. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is breed flavor back
Got a
into
video
our
I'm
food.
going to pull up for you.
Wonderful. Yeah, there we go.
Check this thing out.
Wow.
There we go.
This is AI-powered robot fruit picking that's being
And it's-
beta tested.
It's picking apples? Wow, that is amazing. Now, if it can tell the exact ripeness of an apple, then
It uses the same kind of visual system as Tesla. Now, it's not theirs, obviously. This is a proprietary one for this company,
Yeah.
but it's similar in how it identifies the objects.
yeah.
And it would
Okay.
seem like something as simple as a moisture meter, if it can sense the moisture that's inside the orange, as well as the color of the exterior, you're 90% of the way there already.
Yes, yeah.
And actually,
And,
Mike
you
was
know-
telling me that he hired a colorblind orange picker, and that didn't work out very well.
Right, right. And he comes back with a bag. And he goes, "There aren't any green ones this time." It was like 80% green oranges. And but could you imagine if the Optimus robot had telescopic legs, 6 arms, and some lasers, so that it can pick out aphids or whatever and just shoot down these pests with no pesticides? It can keep them under control, whatever the pest is. On tomatoes, there's those big old tomato worms, and you don't see them until suddenly they're everywhere and your plant is disappearing.
Yeah, and all the leaves are gone like overnight.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We've got a YouTube question here. Pablo Rodriguez says, Mr. Pete, I'm a fan. Would be great instead of showing us components in the car, you should show us how to work on them or in them. Thank you. We are behind on this project, which is developing tutorials how to work on the Teslas. And with everything else that we have going here, of course, that seems to always be on the back burner somewhere. But it is in the plans, and at some point we will have a full set of tutorial videos that will take us or will take someone viewing through the entire process of a repair.
Yes. Highlander on YouTube has an answer to a question that we had asked him a while ago about the military, submarine coming into Puerto Rico. He said, "Yep, it's 1980s." Roosevelt Roads Navy Base.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico, and there were quite a few Navy bases.
Right.
And we've got the Danish. It's Danish Genome Institute, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually Niles. He's in Denmark, by the way. You always get that wrong.
You're right.
In Netherlands,
Okay.
he is Denmark.
I always say the Netherlands,
Well,
and
he
he's
stopped
Denmark.
correcting you now, but I figured I'll do it instead.
Oh, it's okay. Danish. Yeah.
So he says, Open Pilot is doing pretty good. See their development plans. Xpeng is pretty good already. Mercedes underway. Eventually, maybe in 10 years, it'll be a commodity as so many things are before it. And so it sounds like this full self-driving, open pilot, stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's I'm not that familiar with Open Pilot, but it's probably similar to Cruise and Waymo, which is a geofence system that has all the rules and stuff. And if anything changes, you've got to first use Google Maps, and then you've got to go down each road and map out that road with LiDAR. So I don't know if OpenPilot is dependent on LiDAR or not. Do you guys know anything about OpenPilot?
I know very
I haven't
little
heard of that
about
one.
Okay. And so once it's mapped, if anything changes, like a Waymo, you see all the time. There's some robo-taxi that gets confused and stops in the middle of Market Street and just stops traffic on this busiest street in San Francisco. Or it blocks an emergency vehicle, a fire truck, and it just waits for help. Somebody from Waymo has to come out and rescue the thing. And it's basically a party trick where the Tesla full self-driving, the car is actually thinking on its own, and it can figure out how to get from here to there. If it's possible to get from here to there, the car will on its own.
Now, I have heard on Waymo, if you get a traffic cone and you put it on the hood, it'll confuse the car and cause it to stop.
I would not be surprised.
Hey guys, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So we've talked a lot about Tesla and their dominance today. It seems like one side of the political party doesn't want to even acknowledge Tesla. They want to acknowledge GM and Ford, and they even want to investigate Elon. The other side of the party doesn't like EVs. And so what stops the two parties from ganging up and saying, hey, Tesla's a monopoly, let's try to tear them down?
That's entirely possible. It's a shame that there are these knuckle-dragging Luddites that do not want the future to happen, because it's a penalty on all of us.
Yeah.
As of right now, I think it's that the electric vehicle market is too small compared to the overall automobile market. And so the very things that you're talking about, the people who are resisting change are saying, well, Tesla's, they might say they're all these grand things, but they're really small fry.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll dismiss them until it's too late. And then Tesla at that point will be already up at 70 or 80 or 90% share.
Looks like we've got someone from Iran. Instagram, Aziz Kezri 61 says, have a good night and day in Iran. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And then YouTube, Flying Solo says, does he, Mike, need a UPS unit, and does he have one yet?
I've got a little UPS on my computer in my condo that's in. I don't have anything. It's not needed when you've got a Tesla Powerwall.
Right, exactly.
But
Yeah.
it is needed there's like a 2-second lag before the power plant comes on in my building. So there's these periods where, and if you've got stuff on your computer that hasn't been saved, you're in trouble. And
Right.
so, yes, I've got little, like a Costco or Walmart.
Right, SU-1000s.
Yeah, sure.
1 kilowatt unit. So you essentially have a UPS. You just don't have a.
I don't have a Gruber UPS.
Right. Well,
I should.
They call it double conversion. You have a standby UPS that has a there's a break before it will kick on, and that will kill your whatever is running. But
Well, I go through power outages all the time, and the computer doesn't blink.
It doesn't.
It's got a couple of a couple of gel cells.
oh,
in
because
it.
of your small
And-
UPS. Yeah.
Yeah, and it switches over pretty instantly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, what's in those power walls, by the way, is essentially what is in a UPS. It's a 3-phase inverter, or single phase in your case, and it does the same thing. It converts DC to AC, but it's not powering the load all the time.
Guys, just a quick update. The Open Pilot that I looked up their website, it's an AI that interprets vehicle CAN signals. So it's in use on Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai, and a bunch of other existing. So it's just the existing ADAS advanced system that's in use.
Okay, so it's more of a smart cruise control then, right? Or what?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Okay.
And then actually Niles is chiming in. He says, Denmark and the Netherlands once had a common border. That much is true.
Thank you, Niles.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is reminiscent of Raphael Demestre, who is the world traveling. He went around the world in a roadster in 2012, and he's doing it again now. And the biggest takeaway that he was able to share with us, at least in my opinion, about his travels around the world was, these borders are senseless. they are fabrications. They're man-made. They're invisible. When you
Yeah.
cross from one country to another, the grass is the same on one side as it is on
Right.
the other.
The astronauts, when they came, I mean, the whole thing of politics and countries and dividing ourselves up into what are basically just gangs.
Yeah.
You know, back in the 70s and 80s, I lived in Los Angeles from 1960 until 2015. But there were the Crips and the Bloods, these two
Right.
gangs that were
Mhm.
warring, and there were, you know, there's bodies and stuff, and governments are just the next level of gangs, basically, where we divide up and we're. I just can't. It's embarrassing to be human sometimes.
That's probably my favorite takeaway from today's show, what you just said. All right. So anyway, YouTube Lightning Rod, he said, I thought we already moved on to trillions. We're probably talking about, oh, there we go, YouTube, 1.4 billion bus fare. Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
about Starlink.
Starlink,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Lightning Rod later on continues and says, 8 legs and an AI-enhanced cockpit. You mean woohoo, and it flies. And then, am I from the future?
Yeah.
Well, Lightning Rod, I think the answer there, or maybe the other question is, I'm sure that Michael is not AI, but I can't say as much for myself or Pete.
Yeah. And yeah,
You
the
know,
suspicion is that that's why we wear the sunglasses. Yeah.
I've got one of my books, both of my books are on Amazon, but I've been having these incredible problems with Amazon. On the 3rd day of my book launch, they changed the listing to a video game and just crushed
no.
the sales. And so if you were searching for a book, The Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century, you could not, I don't know if it was purposely being suppressed, but I think it is just their giant bureaucracy. But I was dealing with artificial stupidity most of the time. There's no intelligence there. You get this same generic answer back no matter what. So they changed it to a video game. Took me 2.5 months to get them to change it back to a book, but they called it an unknown binding. After another 2.5 weeks, it was finally a paperback once again, but they took away the browse nodes. It used to be under business and money, investing, commodities, precious metals, monetary history, economics, and you could find the book through those if you were searching for anything like that. So now it's under books in bulk, and I keep on getting like more than 60 times. I've gotten the same answer. This is the way customers search. You know, it's the correct listing because this is how customers search and browse for your product.
So it looks like we're going to need to wrap here. We've got an hour and a half. And Mike, if someone wanted to find you on your YouTube channel, what is the name of that again?
You can.
I'll
All
pull
you
it
have to
up.
do is do an internet search for Mike Maloney or Hidden Secrets of Money. The YouTube channel, I believe, is Mike Maloney / Gold Silver. I think.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
All right. And we are going to have our
There
next...
it is, right there.
Yeah. There you go.
Gold Silver parentheses with / Mike Maloney close parentheses. Yeah.
And we got
So-
your books here too, your own web.
Oh, yeah. Let's
okay.
bring those up.
Well, thanks. The new one is it's 4.9 stars out of 5 on Amazon, and 93% 5-star rating. And as far as when you first launch a book, friends and relatives want to help out, so you can find 5-star books on Amazon, but it'll have somewhere between 1 and 5 reviews. And as you get a bunch of reviews, it starts to come down. If you look at books that are over 50 or 100 reviews, the other ones are the highest rating is like 76% 5 stars, and this is 93. And so it's with economics, monetary history, or precious metals. It's the highest rated book. It was 4 years of a team of research. I had 2 other researchers and me, and then an editor working with me to create this thing. And so I think it's going to be enlightening for everybody when it comes to how the monetary system is basically nothing but a Ponzi scheme. A lot of it is about the monetary system and the voodoo economics that we have going on currently.
Thank you, Mike. And one final thing I forgot. The 3 Chinese Tesla Roadsters, the barn find Roadsters,
Yes.
they have come back to the United States. They've been in Long Beach, and they are being picked up tomorrow early morning, and they're going to be here in Phoenix by noon. And it better be right at noon because I've got a crane that's going to be here that's charging hundreds of dollars
Noon
by the
tomorrow?
hour. Noon tomorrow, yes.
Wow.
And so we will be receiving them. And what our plan is, we'll unload them with the crane. And then next week, we will do the reveal, the opening, and begin to, do the dispositioning of the cars. So for those of you that have been anxiously waiting for months now, because this has been a long, drawn-out process, everything cleared customs, everyone is happy, and at this point, they will be on the truck tomorrow and here in Phoenix.
Can't wait to see those. Kind of dig in. I think the first thing we're going to look at is where are the service plugs?
Yes, exactly.
Are they in the battery or are they somewhere in the car?
And is there even the remotest possibility that those batteries, if the service plugs were pulled, will have lasted 13 years?
That's
Well,
right.
I don't think so, but it would be really novel if it did. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Tomorrow we've got the Gruber Power Services podcast. Claude is in the, where's he? Virgin Islands, I think.
Yes, I think it's in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
So I will be co-hosting with Elvis Venter, and then Sunday Jesse and I do our AI podcast at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time. So again, I want to give a shout out to Mike and a lot of credit for joining us. And
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was great being here.
Love
Thank you.
having you here, Mike. Thank you very much, and take care, everyone.
Bye.